What's cracking, people? It's your man Cousin T, aka the Alpha Wingman, representing high-level technicians operating globally and beyond. So listen, today I wanted to continue the series on Octane observations, and today's Octane case study is a particularly interesting one because the 92 Octane sits at sort of a crossroads and what it means to exist in the modern Western world. And there are so many videos that can be made about the 92 Octane because she's so complex. There's so many elements that make up what she represents and what she is, in particular to the modern experience and what it means to survive in this society and what it means to create your own lane and to navigate the space of society at its highest levels. Because at the end of the day, any forward-thinking progressive culture or group of people wants to have the ability to punish and reward those who are against or for their value system. That's the core tenet of power. And so I think that the 92 Octane rests at the central section of what the conscious, progressive, aware, and empowered, culturally aware American aspires to be, and that is in control of their own destiny. So there's this constant conflict of interests that go into the complexity of the 92 Octane, but I'll go further into that after this the breakdown. So as is the case in the remaining podcasts of this particular video series, I'm going to go over the case study for this and we'll observe the SMB range, the identifiers, the environment of operation, skill sets, and what she values. So getting into it, today's case study for the 92 Octane is Olivia Pope, aka Currie Washington. This is a very, very popular character, so I chose it because it's a relatable icon within modern society. Her world is politics. She identifies as female, height is 5'5", weight about 130, octane grade, of course, 92. Now the 92's SMV range tends to be 7 to 9. And what's interesting is that, okay, so I was asked about why the SMV range is included and why none of the case studies SMV is below a 7. This is just a little tangent. That is because select men aren't looking for women under 7. And to be honest, the majority of select men go for 8 and above. The 7 is the adjustable number. So when I assign the SMV range that starts at 7, that is just sort of the adjustable ground floor for what a select man would choose in a woman depending on her octane grade. Okay, moving on. Her identifiers are the business suit, power shoes, power purse, coffee / teacup in a hand, and straightened hair. Her environment of operation, this tends to be the office structure, Fortune 500 companies. She works in government. She can be in law. She can be in the medical field or educational institutions. The 92 Octane skill sets include professional level proficiencies, great at communication. She is an avid micromanager. She is adept at corporate structure navigation. Those are the realm or the range, the ranges of her skill sets. What she values. This is probably the most important part. The 92 Octane, in my observation, tends to value the current trend, or keeping up and surpassing the quote-unquote Joneses. She also has or shows splashes of cultural identity, and ultimately she values having it all by any means, and finally being the CEO of her family. That's sort of in a nutshell if a 92 could have it all, quote unquote. She'd not only be, the boardroom boss, but also the boss of her family. All right. So just a further breakdown as far as my observations of the 92 Octane and why her dynamic is so complex. Because for a 92 Octane to exist and to operate, there has to be three elements that I believe are required in order for her to successfully navigate the space of the modern corporate world. And incidentally, before I go over these three elements, I just want to say that it doesn't matter where a 92 Octane starts her journey. What I mean by that is a woman could come from a certain pedigree. It could be an upper crust pedigree, upper middle class. It could be an aristocratic pedigree, or it could be a woman who comes from the inner city streets or the countryside. I personally know of a woman who came from the inner city streets of Chicago, who's now a doctorate holding principal of a school. So where a woman starts does not matter. And just to refer back to the introduction video to this series, the difference between women on this spectrum, the Octane spectrum, are aptitude, attitude, ambition, and access. So, and those three elements are: one, the mask of Western society. And that means that she puts on the front and presentation and virtue signals that follow the cues and contracts of the modern Western world. Two, she wears the uniform of the Western corporate structure, again referring to that power suit. But a uniform is more than just the clothing. It is her posture. It is how she carries herself, how she projects her persona, which mirrors that of the Western corporate structure. And finally, she speaks the language of the Western power structure. You see, I referred earlier to what power is. And when you boil it down to its lowest common denominator, power is the ability to reward and punish within an established order. Okay, and there's no Octane on the spectrum that has a better understanding of this particular concept, in my opinion, than the 92 Octane, because the 92 Octane is the quintessential woman who is not only given the reins of power in her own community, but she's allowed to exist within the greater strata of the power structure in the Western world. Think about that for a moment. This is why the 92 Octane is complex, and why I refer to the 92 Octane and a lot of 92 Octanes that I've interacted with and that I've come to know, I refer to them as broken perfectionists. This is because I observe that they're seeking a return to pre-quote-unquote colonialized traditions where scarcity management isn't the rule of the day, but the rule of the day is the interdependency of abundance, and that is what truly governs a successful culture. You see, that's where the conflict comes in. The 92 Octane is all too aware of the system that we exist in, and she's put into a conflict of having to choose between going against the system and supporting the men of her culture, in their ascension, or going along with the current system that continues to break and continues to subject the men of her own culture. So that's why there's this interplay and this conflict within the mind and the world of the 92 Octane. But getting back to topic, the 92s, they tend to be the most awkward when interacting with alpha show pieces or ugly sexy players. This is because they're so used to being in command, or used to being the directors of a situation. But when, like I say, when that ASP Holy Ghost hits them, they're completely thrown off. And what's interesting is they get really, really thoughtful. They get really, really comprehensive about what they display. Not only are they going to present their, their sex rep beyond their marketing rep, but they're the ones who try to put together this, this fabulous life, with the ASP or the USP, as a part of that fabulous life. And believe it or not, 92 Octanes, when they run across the right ASP, they are willing to risk it all in order to foster and to develop and to start this new journey or adventure or chapter in their lives with this guy who is capable of bringing things out of them that the average man can't do. Now, that's not to say that a 92 Octane who is in the presence of a master of the universe doesn't want to be a part of his program, because they're constantly interacting with each other. And what's interesting is when you observe the dynamic between a 92 Octane and a master of the universe, he is the first and the main type of man that a 92 Octane is willing to submit to. She is willing to submit to the leadership of a master of the universe. And what's interesting is that most 92 Octanes and other women will deny that men are capable of leadership, will deny that they are willing to relinquish their societal and government given authority to a man. The master of the universe is the only exception. Now, she knows that she needs to keep that mask on. She needs to keep that uniform going, and she needs to remain fluid in the language of the Western power structure when she's following a master of the universe, because he himself has to have these three things in order to navigate and to create and to mold and shape the environment in his image. So as far as ideal matches and pairings, those would be the ideal scenarios. However, it doesn't necessarily play out that way in mainstream culture, even though it happens all the time. We know of many power couples, quote unquote, that happen behind the scene and that form these wonderful organizations and these wonderful charities and these wonderful nonprofits behind the scenes. That's another video for another day. But 9 times out of 10, that 92 Octane woman ends up settling down. Keyword is settling with a 92 Octane man, or an educated lame, or a Carlton, and their relationship dynamic is one of a transaction. And that's where you get all of these conversations about these unsatisfied women and all of these, all of this disconnect, and why are these women so bossy, and why do these women try to be the CEOs of their family? Why won't they let their man lead? And why do they look at these men as weak? Well, there you go with that dynamic. And what's interesting is that a lot of 92 Octane men tend to be weeded out and to be vetted, to even be allowed in those upper echelon spaces within the corporate structure. That's another video for another day. However, it speaks to why so many 92 Octane women are seen as dominant or hyper masculine, or quote unquote alpha women. And two things are at play here, right? They're in a negotiated relationship with a man on paper that looks compatible to them, but this is a man who's wearing the same mask that she has to wear in order to navigate their space. And the thing about it is that the 92 Octane woman has the privilege of removing that mask and being vulnerable as a woman when she chooses to outside of the corporate realm. However, the educated lane or the Carlton hasn't explored his masculine mastery to the point that develops himself outside of the mask, outside of the uniform, and beyond the language of the power structure, the corporate power structure, to present and create his own environment and to manipulate his own environment to create his own world. That is what a master of the universe is. The master of the universe, and why he's considered select, is because he has transitioned beyond the use of a mask to navigate the space, because he's created his own lane as a select man. And that's what makes the biggest difference between the 92 Octane educated lane, aka Carlton, and the select master of the universe. This man has used that corporate mask and uniform and language as a springboard to create his own world. And that's the biggest difference. And that is what a 92 Octane woman is looking in a man who she's willing to follow. I have a little buddy named Pilot, and a few guys are familiar with Pilot. I'll actually link her Instagram page on the Patreon side so you guys can see what she looks like. She's a very attractive, voluptuous young lady who has a master's degree from UCLA, actually, and she works in the corporate world. However, she travels in jet sets like a 100 Octane, and she and I have very open and honest conversations. And to be honest with you, she enjoys the company of street dudes. And even though she knows that that runs right in conflict with the world in the space that she moves in the corporate space, her thing is she openly admitted that she does not she's not attracted to the educated lanes in her space, in the corporate world, and more specifically in her office. Keep this in mind, gentlemen. Most men get lost in the mask and can't interpret the language between the language. What does that mean? The language primarily of a 92 Octane woman is corporate speak, right? But the language between the corporate speak is the language of women. And so the man who is on his path of masculine mastery knows that it's more important to listen than to speak, because the man who listens understands how to code switch and how to observe a woman who is code switching. And just like jumping double dutch, he understands how to jump in between the lines. And that's how you get to a 92 Octane. And on the Patreon side, I'm going to relate the story of a delicious 92 Octane sister who was, or still is, an attorney and a kinesiology doctorate holder. I'm going to tell of those adventures that we had in those summer night. We had some fun nights indeed, but the one story that I'm going to relate will, I think, encapsulate the idea behind my observations of the 92 Octane. But as always, this is your man Cousin T, aka the Alpha Wingman, saying stay tuned for the next installment in the Octane Observation series, and as always, stay sharp and mission focused. Later.